Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Fat Loss Game podcast. I am so excited for today's episode because I have one of my most dedicated and hard-working clients that I have had the pleasure of working with. So we are just going to get right into it. Do you want to introduce yourself or do you want me to do it?
You could do it.
Okay. So, me and Ashley have been working together for over a year now. My God, I don't even know
Yeah,
how long it's.
October 2021 is when we started.
That's crazy. Okay, so October 2021, and her initial goal was to get ready for her wedding for the following year in November.
I guess
Um,
2022, October 2022.
Oh, yeah. So what yeah, it would've been
Yeah.
October 2022, you're right. But we have been working together, so a little over a year now, and we just have I would say we are one and the same person. We are both very type A hard workers, like to be the best at everything, very competitive, which I love about you. And your wedding just passed in November, and now we are getting you ready for your trip in Bali. So, where I would like to start is okay, I know I kind of spoiled it by saying that you came to me to get ready for your wedding, but going back to that place where when you first reached out to me, what was your motivation or your thought process for where you wanted to be for your wedding?
Yeah, so I would say I got engaged in December of 2021. I tried to do it by myself. December 2021, January 1st, I signed up for Orange Theory. And really nothing against Orange Theory. I was going, 5 times a week. I had really great instructors. I do think it was motivational in the sense of giving me something that I, had to commit to every day. But the hard part for me was, I was going 5, 6 times a week. I was there at 5 a.m., but I wasn't seeing any results really. I saw them at the beginning and, then it really tailored off and I just really didn't know what I was doing wrong. But I knew that I wanted to, start out, lose weight and look my best for my wedding. So I found you and I reached out to you in October of 2022. At that point, I'd done about 10 months of, Orange Theory and F45 and really trying to um, do it by myself. And I think the catalyst for me was I wasn't seeing results. And so I knew I needed a change and I needed someone to actually tell me what to do. And so I think when we started our partnership, you were very good at telling me, okay, this is the game plan. This is how we're going to do it. These are the steps you have to take, and you have to take accountability for them. Um, and so I think it was really looking for like that partnership and guidance that went beyond just, okay, go to this class. From even an education perspective, the nutritional piece I never realized was so much more than just going to the gym. You think you can just go and it's just going to come off, and that's just not the reality. So I think partnership in October, I really was just looking for some help, just guidance on like what am I doing wrong and how do I actually, make progress.
So when you reached out to me, did you know what you were doing wrong? Did you know why you weren't seeing results, or were you literally just like, I have no idea, like I'm working out super hard, help me?
Yeah, so I would say that it was kind of a combination of two things. I knew it wasn't working. So going to Orange Theory, 6 times a week, it wasn't working. I also, I knew nutrition was a piece of it. So I had worked, with a nutritionist before working with you. And I just had a really negative experience. It was, working with them, it was very much like, here's your macros. I'm going to teach you, you're going to get a pamphlet on what each of these things are. And here's a week, like a daily goal, go for it. And there was really, like, no guidance on, like, how do you actually build your day around healthy macros? What is the purpose of each of them? And then how does that actually help you work out? So for me, it just wasn't a partnership. And, I live in around New York City. I'm commuting in and out of the city, multiple times a week. I needed a partner to actually help me hit my goals. Like, I knew I needed someone to be like, this is exactly what you need to do. Here's a booklet. And then really being able to evolve beyond that. But at the time, it was really like I needed someone to hold my hand and be like, okay, you don't have the bandwidth to think about like what you need to eat each day. Here's a crafted meal plan for you based on things you like, how you want to move forward. I think the other piece was I had gotten so out of shape. I was a competitive dancer. I was always really in shape. I got into my 20s, started going to the city, started working, 12, 14-hour days, and just going to the gym just fell off. So I do think there was also the combination of going to the gym and just literally not knowing what to do. And so when you go to things like Orange Theory or F45, the benefit is they're telling you, this is what you need to do. The hard part is you don't actually need to do all of those things for you. You need kind of a more customized approach. And I think that partnership with you really helped identify, okay, this is your nutritional approach, but then this is the actual workout approach you need to take in order to reach your goal. So balancing kind of cardio with a lot more weightlifting, and really learning, cardio only helps so much. So running, 25, 30 minutes a day isn't actually that beneficial in some sense of trying to lose weight and build muscle and like change your body. Um, that was something that I literally didn't know. You just hear like, oh, just like go for a run, go for a walk, cardio, cardio, cardio. And I would say I've had the most transformation by really leaning into weightlifting, but also learning how to do it correctly.
So, when going back to the nutritionist that you worked with, did you see her once and that was it, or did you see her as an ongoing basis?
Yeah, so I had weekly meetings with her. Um, it was actually really demoralizing. And the reason I would say this is because it gave me a really bad relationship with the scale and with numbers and really seeing them as like emotional triggers for me versus actual just like data in and data out. So what would happen was I would meet with her. I would go do like a full body scan. I would then leave the body scan, go to her office. She'd pull the body scan up, compare it to my previous one. If there was fat loss or, she'd be like, "Okay, great, keep your macros, get out of here." If there wasn't fat loss, it was more of a conversation of like, "Why didn't you like what happened this week? Like why didn't you hit your macros?" And I think the really missing piece of that was there was no conversation about like what's your stress life like? You know, do you actually feel like you know what you should eat? Um, I remember she gave me like one meal plan to begin with, um, but it had like all things like I wouldn't eat, so like I'm not a huge salmon person. Like I'm never going to pick that. So I think that I don't necessarily know if it was, like, destined to fail, but I just think that for that kind of partnership, I needed someone to actually, like, dig in with me and be like, "Okay, here's this week. Here's this day. You have to go out to dinner with a client. Give me the menu so I can, take a look and help you build, a better life, like, a better choice." So I just think there was a lot of almost shame in the weight piece of it, and then partnered with just like not being able to get answers of what am I doing wrong? I need help. Like I get that I'm supposed to hit like at that time, like 145 grams of carbs, but like what are the good carbs to hit? Like, what am I actually supposed to be eating? How do I hit 160 grams of protein like effectively in a day? And I think it's really hard when you're first beginning because you're just not used to it. Like, even when you start logging your food, I think there's even a little bit of shame in that too, because you start to like, you know, you just start to realize, like, how far off you are, um, when you, like, just begin, and I think it's challenging when you're first starting to, I do recommend if start, like, just log, just see what happens, see what you're logging. I think it's important, but I do think that there's success in when you're logging and you know what you're eating will come into your macros instead of just, like, guessing at the beginning of the day. Like, that was never successful for me.
I totally, totally agree. So when you came to me, I mean, since you had such a negative experience with that nutritionist, I can imagine it was there a part of you that came to me and was like, am I going to have the same experience? Like, how did you take that leap of faith once you already had that bad taste in your mouth?
Yeah, so I would say the one thing we did when I first contacted you was we had a very transparent conversation about it. And you were like, "You're gonna need to use MyFitnessPal, you're gonna do weigh-ins, you're gonna do measurements. That's how we're gonna approach this. And we need to do photos, weigh-in, measurements. We're gonna do it weekly." Um, Even from like the nutritional perspective, like you need to log every single day. I think the biggest difference was when we first started, you had me do like an intake form where you literally asked me questions of like, what are you currently eating? Like, what's your current breakfast? What's your current, lunch and dinner look like? What are the top five foods you love? What are things that you don't want to lose out of your day? Um, and I think to start out with, that made it so much easier because we we weren't starting out just like immediately cutting things and being like chicken and broccoli. There you go. you know, it was much more a tailored approach of saying, okay, you like to have, a protein shake in the morning. That's great. It's giving you, 40, 50 grams of protein. We love that. Great way to start. So you're already killing it. But we need to tailor like your lunch and your dinner to be more, you know, focused in a balance of carbs, fats, and proteins, or more higher protein. So, build more ounces of, chicken or fish or whatever you want into your diet. And I think taking that approach was really encouraging for me because it was like you're doing, and maybe this was just a nice way of you being like, you're doing okay. you know, like, you're not terrible. I mean, there's definitely things we can fix, but I think that you just took more of a approach of actually giving me a solution that included foods I liked, included things that I was currently eating, and more tailoring them to the serving size that should have kept me full. And then honestly having like honest conversations about it of, okay, like what's going to actually help you log. So if and we learn this over time, right? Like I'm not a active logger during the day. I can't do it. It's very, so I log all my food the night before. And that's something that like we've partnered on is the best solution for me. Planning my meals for the next day. It's already done. It's already like there's no guessing on what to eat. And I think that was just it was just a very different approach, than just like, "Here you go. This is just your average meal plan that everyone should be able to follow, regardless of what you like to eat." And I think if you take out everything you like to eat, you're never going to be successful on this. Like, you just aren't. So, if there are things you like, if you're someone who likes having an ice cream bar at the end of the day, great, like, you can still have that, but maybe you switch to like a Yasso bar instead of like a Haagen-Dazs bar, or you change, you supplement what you want, or you just do it at a more granular serving size to not make you feel like you're just like missing out on life.
Yes, I think learning how to incorporate the foods that you love is so essential. I also think me and you have I mean, we've always had really great communication. I feel like when I talk to you, I just understand where you're coming from, and like I said, you've always been very open with me, and hopefully you feel this, but I feel as though I've always been open, non-judgmental, just here to hear what you have to say and help you navigate that without judgment. And I think that's a really important part of coaching or just anyone that you're working with is having that open line of communication. How was your communication with your nutritionist? Do you felt like she heard you? Like she heard your concerns? Were you able to be open with her and vulnerable with her and tell her how you feel?
I would say no. I would say like there's definitely was a bit of a screen in between. I completely agree with you. I think that for this to work, there's a lot of personal growth that needs to happen. Like going on a nutritional journey or going on any kind of journey like requires hard work, requires you being really honest with yourself and open to saying I didn't do well this week, or I messed up today, or, I need to improve or I need help. Um, and I think that within our partnership, you were always just very open to me saying, hey, I need help. Hey, this was not a good week for me. I got killed at work. It was, I didn't make it to the gym, or I didn't, you know, I didn't make the best decision. And I think that there's a lot of personal growth of how do you shift out of like this idea of being a victim to this idea of no, I actively made that choice. Like I actively made that choice. And that's why I didn't lose weight this week. And I think across this process working with you, I've gained a lot of confidence of being able to own my decisions and being able to actively speak against them, right? Because I think with eating in general, there's a lot of different cycles you can go through. Like some people are just naturally really good at eating their serving sizes and like food isn't a trigger for them. For me, I had a really different relationship with food. Really was very good at overeating. I was really good at seeing food as like a celebration at the end of something versus a vehicle for, my life. And I really, like, you really helped me reframe, my relationship with food, which my previous nutritionist like never even touched on. Like, she never even touched on the fact that, like, there's, like, an emotional relationship, there can be emotional triggers, and I think that that was, like, the biggest piece of information that I was missing. Like, I genuinely thought at the beginning of this, I was like, "It's just me. Like, I have no control. I'm just I just make bad decisions. I always sabotage myself. There's no way I can get out of this cycle." And I think you need someone to be able to say, "Hey, I've been there." Like, I've been there to the point where it's like, "You know what? Yeah, you can go to the grocery store and buy whatever you want. It's right there. We're all adults. We're making those decisions." But you also have to be accountable for those decisions the next day. So I think, one of the best things you've ever said to me is if you have a bad day, log it anyways. Because if you if you just like are like, no, I'm not gonna log on. Like I'm just gonna like slide that one in. Like, why are you doing that? Like that's an emotional response. That's shame. That's saying like, I don't want my coach to see this. And I think that the reality of that is like that's a response that like I had to learn how not to do. Like how to be okay with there's gonna be days where I eat the cookie, and there's gonna be days where I can say no. Or there's going to be days where, I'm just like, "You know what? Macros don't count. I'm gonna eat a pizza today." Um, but it's about kind of, I think, working with you really allowed me to see that the emotional element partnered with actually owning your actions and being accountable to yourself, they have to go together for, like, nutrition to work. Um, and that was something that I really, like, no one talks about. Like, when I went to the like, it was just like, "Here you go, like, just try to make it work," and I just think that that was not a successful approach. It definitely you definitely need more of, like, the partnership, emotional support through it.
I mean, I think I most people struggle with their weight, and I genuinely believe is because as humans, we are emotional creatures, and like you said, our attachment to food is emotional, so if you don't learn how to master that emotional side, we're not robots. We don't make food decisions like as a robot would, which is just completely logical. Like we like to eat foods that taste good, right? Even if they're not the healthiest. That's totally emotional. So learning how to mesh those two together where okay, you're not going to get rid of your emotional side. How can you work with that? How can you befriend that but still take accountability for your decisions? I think is so essential. And I know when we first started working together, I mean there's so many different pieces of your life that we changed. I did have you stop going to Orange Theory. I had you start going to the gym and lifting weights, and that was new for you. I had you start tracking your macros and meal prepping, like totally different lifestyle to get you to where you wanted to be. So, what was your experience like in the beginning? Because there were a lot of changes that happened. Was that, I mean, was that overwhelming for you? Was it exciting? Was it hard? Was it easy? What was your experience like?
Yeah, so I would say personality perspective, I am very type A. I love making to-do lists. I love having a plan, and if you give me a plan, I can execute it. So, I think that that's a personality trait that if you don't have, you do need to hone. I mean, um it's really easy not to go to the gym. It's really easy to just pick up something and eat it. Like, it's hard. It takes time to, if you work 8 to 8 or you work 8 to 7 like I do, I mean, you don't have you have to wake up early. You have to go to the gym. You have to make sacrifices in your life to be able to deliver on your goals. I think that at the beginning, the most challenging piece to me was figuring out the time. Like, how am I going to have time to do everything? How am I going to build in my life, time with my partner, time working and dedicating to that, getting to the gym, making healthy, choices, going to the grocery store, doing all these things. Um, and how am I going to do it in a way that I'm also like sleeping and thriving and, building a life? Um, I think at the beginning, the most, and even to this day, the most challenging piece to me is the nutrition piece. Going to the gym, has was always pretty easy for me. That I was already going because of Orange Theory. I was already going to a gym in the sense. I did get a little bit of gym phobia when I started going more into lifting weights or gym intimidation, not gym phobia, but gym intimidation in the sense that, especially as a female, I mean, you're seeing more females in the part, weight room part of the gyms, I think more now. But even like 2, 3 years ago, it generally was usually just me. It was like I was the only female in there. And with all these guys, and it can be very intimidating to do that. And for me at the beginning, I was like, I probably look ridiculous. Like, I am probably the biggest person in here. I look ridiculous. I'm using really lightweight because I'm just starting. Um, and I will say, like, the one thing I learned throughout that process was like, no one goes to the gym to look at you. Like, when you're actually in the gym, like, no one's, like, looking at you to judge you, and in fact, a lot of them can actually really help you. So, whether it's, "Hey, like, how do I load this barbell? Like, where do I find, you know, just different things in the gym, or how do I actually use this machine or move it so it fits for me?" So, I think that was one of the most challenging pieces, and then just really finding the time to do everything. Um, Whether it's meal prepping, waking up early, telling your partner, hey, can we try to do something a little different? Can we go, do a family walk at the end of the night versus, spending quality time sitting on the couch? Um, it is a big life change, and you just have to really be open to that. Like, if you don't put in the work, you're not going to do, like, you're just not going to succeed.
So when you're adding in all these things, it does require definitely a time commitment from you. Were there things that you had to take out or give up in your life that, like, you were dedicating time to before that now you had to dedicate time to meal prepping and gym? Was there any switch in your lifestyle or things you had to sacrifice?
I think it's a difference in values. I used to really think that, like, quality time with my partner was, or quality time for myself was, like, sitting on the couch, and relaxing in a sense, right? It was like that time that was for you that, like, you didn't really have to do anything. And I think what I've started to realize is that there's different ways that, like, you can give back to yourself, and you can find enjoyment in them. So going to the gym for me now is a way for me to, spend that quality time, or relax in a way, even though I am working hard, right? It's I think it's you have to change your approach, and I wouldn't even classify it as giving up things. I don't think in your journey, like, you can't really think about it that way because, like, I guess, yes, like, you are giving up things if when you think about, I'm not gonna eat certain things, or, I'm only gonna have a glass of wine once a week, or I'm only going to do so and so, like, whatever it is for you. But for at least for me to be successful, I really had to rethink about, like, what do I actually want to accomplish in a day? If I want to eat healthily, and I want to go to the gym, and I want to spend time with my partner, I have to establish a schedule for my day. And maybe that means that, my partner's sleeping till 7, but I'm up at 5:30. Maybe that means that I wake up at 5:30 7 days a week. That also means that I go to bed at 10. So maybe I'm not necessarily doing, you know, going out and partying or doing whatever I need to do to ensure that I can keep that schedule. Um, and it's really establishing those boundaries, I think, with yourself, your partner, and also, like, your friends and other external forces as well. Like, there's definitely going to be times, like, if you're changing your life, where you're like, okay, like, we used to go out, every Friday. We used to, meet up with friends, get drinks, do this, do all these things. Um, so it's reassessing that. It's saying, okay, we can go out on Friday. I'm only going to drink one drink, and I want to be home by 10. And setting that boundary with your partner, or setting that boundary for yourself, and actually committing to it will help you. Like, you can't you have to schedule it. You have to know what your boundaries are, and you have to know how much time is it actually going to take, um, and how do you actually want to live your life, right? So, yeah, like, you can stay up late, you can spend quality time with people, and that is a way that you can live your life. You can still do all of those things when you're in a fitness journey. It's just rearranging, how you're approaching them, or how much of yourself you're giving to them.
I love that. It's so important that people really just take in what you said. You don't focus on what you're giving up. You focus on what you want to accomplish, and you just set your sights on that and figure out what you need to do. And it's so important to hear that because any goal you have will require a sacrifice. Any goal. We only have a certain amount of time and energy in a day. If you focus on what you are going to give up, you will just feel pain, so much pain that you won't be motivated to work towards your goal. And so the first step in going after any goal is just making peace with the fact that you're going to have to change your lifestyle. There are things you're going to have to give up. It can't be the same. And it sounds like for you, you've already internalized that message. You've made your peace with that fact. And this is something why I think you are so effective at reaching your goals and just being somebody who can set their sight on something and just go after it is you understand that fact. So now it's, hey, what do I want? I'm not going to focus on anything else other than what do I want and what do I need to do to get there. You put it on your to do list, you schedule it, and you make sure it gets done. And that is truly an incredible skill that you have, and an incredible skill that anybody who wants to reach any goal in their life needs to have. Have you always been like that? Have you always been like a high achiever and good at just going after what it is that you want?
Yeah, so I would say that my family is rather successful in the sense of, following their passions and giving everything they have to them. So that was definitely something for me, from the time I was a kid growing up, that you give everything you have. And at the end of the day, even if you fail, if you can say, I tried my hardest, I genuinely put everything I could into this. My parents and our family was really proud of us for doing that. It didn't have to be like, yes, I became the best. Like, that was never the goal. The goal was really to say, did you put everything you had into this? And win or fail, win or lose, you learn something from it. And so for me, that's how I've really tried to always approach my life, in the sense of, I think a lot of people set goals. I think that if we were to ask, people and we said, okay, like, what are your goals? They'd be like, I want this car, or I want this house, or I want this job. In order to hit those goals, you actually have to do something. You can't just say, like, yeah, I want this car. If you don't actually do anything to get that car, aka, get a job, put in the time, actually save the money, um, you're never going to achieve it. And I think that for me, I've always thought of having goals, but then taking the necessary steps to actually get there. And it doesn't mean you go from 0 to 100. That's never been successful for me. You know, I, had a goal. I wanted to work in advertising. I'm originally from Arizona. So when I graduated, I went to all of the big cities. I went to LA, I went to Chicago, I went to New York, I went to Dallas, and I started interviewing everywhere, um, knowing that the likelihood that I would get a job in New York City was probably fairly slim because I was from Arizona. Um, but I still knew I wanted to get there. So I knew that if I just put in an application, I likely wasn't going to get picked. So I started reaching out to all of these different people for informational interviews on LinkedIn. And I had people actually say yes. And so I took the step of, flying to Chicago, flying to New York, flying to LA, meeting with these people. And at the end, I knew going into that meeting, at the end of it, I wanted them to take my resume, submit it to HR so that I could potentially get a job. Here's the thing, most people are not going to put the effort into even writing that first letter on LinkedIn, even searching for someone, who potentially works at that business that you may know and build a connection with. And I think that that's a really good symbolism for when you start any kind of journey or you're really trying to achieve any goal. There's multiple steps that have to be taken. You know, first step, okay, I want to work in New York City. First step for that was, who do I potentially know that already works there or is a connection of someone else that can make an introduction for me? Next step, I actually have to be willing to put in the work of flying there at any given time to meet with them, right? You know, and then last piece of it is actually telling people what I want and asking for their help. And I think I did that exact same thing with you when we partnered. So first step, I was like, okay, I can try to do this by myself. I'm going to go to Orange Theory. Second step, okay, Orange Theory is not working 100%. I think I need to add nutrition into this. Got a nutritionist, didn't really work out, as we've talked about. Okay, third step, I need help. So I'm going to reach out to someone who can do both the nutrition and the workout, who I've seen, a friend of mine see fabulous results from. And I'm going to reach out to her and see if she can help me too. Um, you have to be responsible for the goals you set and also the goals of actually fulfilling them, taking the steps necessary. It is so easy not doing anything. Like, genuinely, it's so easy to be like, I want a six pack. Like, that's my goal. It's so easy not to do anything. It's so easy to say that. Like, yep, that's my goal. That's not my goal. But, like, that's not my fitness goal personally, but that could be someone's fitness goal. And then they'll just say it and say it and say it and say it and say it, and they won't actually put in the work. And I think that knowing that there's no win or lose, knowing that the only piece of you that's going to feel success or what makes you feel successful, I think is really important. And I think that at the end of the day, if you can say you put everything into it, you tried your hardest, there was nothing else you could do, that's really like all you really need, right? And that's all you've ever asked of me was, are you willing to commit to this? Are you willing to put time and effort and energy and love into this process? Um, and at the end of the day, we've seen results, which is great, but we also saw weeks where we didn't see results. And you have to stay motivated through those. So again, it's just knowing to your so there like success, again, you're not always going to win. You're not going to see the scale go down every single week. You're not going to lose inches magically every single week. That's just not realistic. So what does success look like has to be defined in a different way, and it has been for me, and that's what I think has helped me stay on the journey and really helped me evolve is that success for me at the end of the week is, did I put everything I could into this week? What did I deliver on? Was it 80%, 100%, 90%? And what am I comfortable with saying? If 80% is the goal and I delivered on that, great. I don't think 100% is realistic for anything. I just think there's a lot of, life and things that happen. But I would say that working with you has really evolved my idea of what success is, um, and just like how to establish that, throughout the journey.
So I know we are initially going to dive deep into how to maintain motivation, but I think you just gave us a much bigger gift, which is most people have a goal, but they don't work towards it. And what I see as the difference is number one, you first have to believe that effort will get you somewhere. You have to have this faith that if you put in the time and effort, something will happen. You will reap some positive benefit. And you have that belief. I believe you got that from your family, from your parents, that if you work hard, you will reap the benefits. Maybe not immediately, but something good has to come of it. And I think a lot of people don't yet have that belief of effort will eventually pay off. They believe effort should immediately pay off. And if it doesn't, that means it doesn't work. And that is something. And so that's the trap that most people fall into and why they don't stay motivated. So I think it all ties in where you have to keep showing up no matter what, because eventually it will pay off. But there is a level of blind faith to that because you aren't seeing the results yet. And there are weeks where you're not going to see the results. So, something that a beautiful gift that truly I think you've just given us is the understanding that if you don't do anything, it's number one, it's so easy to not do anything. And if you don't do anything, you are guaranteed to fail without a doubt. And also the idea that success isn't whether or not you lost the weight or you got the job or the what's so easy to determine as success is the external factors, but really it's did you put in the effort? Because that alone is a definition of success. And again, I agree. That's what me and you have established, right? I purposefully don't reward you based on whether or not you lost weight. Oh, you lost weight, great. Oh, you didn't. What did you do poorly? No. It's all about did you do what you said you were going to do this week? Did you follow through on your habits? And even when you didn't, did you at least like for example, if we give you a goal of hitting your macro targets, but that day was just like your cravings and hunger is super high, the success is still, okay, well, I didn't just say, "Screw it, I'm not gonna track today and just eat whatever I want." You still tracked, you incorporated the foods that you were craving, you portion controlled, you didn't just say completely screw it, and you did the best that you could with what you had that day. And that alone is success. It's truly, did you do better today than you would have last month, last year? Did you do what you could have with, the amount of stress that you were given that day? So, redefining what success is truly is a pivotal part of this journey. And it's clear that even before me and you started working together, you had that in you of I'm just going to reward myself of did I put in the effort? And your parents did that too. And I will say what our parents teach us, it makes a huge impact. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't have parents that teach them just do your best, right? They only reward them whether or not they got the care or not, but not did you do your best? Because if you did your best, that alone is amazing. And so if you're listening to this right now and you don't, I'm going to say yet have the belief that success is really whether or not you gave your best, you gave it your all, this is now your sign to redefine success because there is no guarantee that you are going to succeed. But and you can't control that, but you can control what effort you put in. And if you decide that it's just not worth it and you're not gonna give anything, you guarantee you'll stay stuck. You guarantee your failure. So I just the way you just articulated that and the way that you described your experience of getting your advertising job, I had no idea that you did that, that you did those extra steps, that you are so right. Very few people would do that. But that just goes to show that you got your dream job in New York City, right? From Arizona, but you had to take those steps that you didn't know if it was gonna pay out. You didn't know if flying to these people was gonna get you the job, but the only way to know whether or not it's actually gonna work is if you try, right? And I genuinely do believe even if you don't, even if you put in your effort and you don't necessarily reach your end goal, you will still get so much closer to your end goal than had you not tried at all. That's, I mean, without a doubt. And so, learning again how to change how you reward yourself in terms of did I lose the weight or instead switch it to, did I give my best? And that deserves all of the reward and praise. Like truly, because that's the only thing that we can control. So just thank you for that. Because even after hearing your story of especially getting your job, like I'm so thoroughly inspired right now. And it just speaks to your level of dedication and your mindset, and is what I know is why you are one of my most hardworking, committed, dedicated clients. I've truly been so impressed with you ever since day one, because even when you have your tough days, you never just throw in the towel and say, screw it. You still do your best. Even if that's messy, I know that you do your best. And again, that is all that matters. So before we close out our podcast interview, if you could only give one piece of advice to somebody who has lost weight in the past, but they've never really kept it off, they've never really, you know, stuck to anything longer than a few weeks, what advice would you give that person?
Oh, that's a hard one. um, what advice I would give to that person? Um, I guess it's like kind of a 2 or 3 pronged answer. My first answer to that would be, protein is your friend. Figure out how, easiest step, add protein to every meal you eat. Just make that a basis of every meal you eat. Um, I think the other piece is learning how to become a better person, become someone who can deliver on their goals, I think is a lot more than just going to the gym and eating correctly. Um, you know, figuring out what your actual goals are. There's a reason that you're fluctuating. There's a reason that you got into it and then you stopped, and you got into it and you stopped, or you're not delivering on that goal, or you're not focusing in or leaning in. Try to take a step back and think about your life in general, of saying, what am I actually happy about? Like what brings me joy? What am I really thriving in? What are the areas that I'm not? And how do you balance those two? Is it, getting educational podcasting? Is it reading different books? Is it learning how to manifest? Is it, you know, taking the necessary steps to evolve certain pieces of your life? And I think that one thing that nutrition and fitness do is they give you a structure that you can build upon. So that structure can be anything in your life. It can be a 10-minute walk in the morning. It can be, I'm going to try to drink 4 water bottles a day. Um, I really think that you have to not just let your life be. I really think you have to have structure, and really lean into the fact that in order to have anything in life, in order to make your dreams happen, you have to take steps to do it. And they can be really little steps. Um, but you have to be open and willing to do that. And so I would say protein, number one, but two, um, figure out what your goals are, figure out what's actually going to make you happy, and really think about your day. There's so much time in a day, whether you're waking up at 8 or 5 like me, whether you're going to bed early or not, you have so much time in a day. So how do you actually want to structure it? What do you actually want to accomplish? And I think when you think about it that from that perspective, it's a lot easier to be like, hey, like I don't need to sit on the couch for 4 hours. I can, take that step. Or um and then I would say like the last piece of my answer, because I didn't answer it correctly. The last piece of my answer would be, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think there's a lot of shame that comes with the weight loss category and, feeling overweight. And I personally could never have done this by myself. I I think that you see a lot of pictures online and you see all these guides and people are like, do this, do this, do this, do that. And having a friend or someone that you can actually lean on to work on it together and build that relationship, I think is really important. But just asking like one person for help, just saying, hey, like, do you want to go to a Pilates class with me? Hey, like, do you want to go on a walk with me, or have that relationship, I think is really important.
That is phenomenal. I'm actually glad you gave a three-part answer because every point that you touched on is it's crucial. And I'm sure, anyone listening to this, even connecting with one of those points can be life-changing. So, I just want to say, like, I mean, you know how much I love you. You know how much joy I get from our calls each week, from just being able to work with you. I think I do love the fact that we are essentially the same person. Me and you think the same. We've had the same obstacles with nutrition, with overeating, with using food as a reward, with everything, with like managing stress and loving to do lists. So, obviously, the fact that we are so similar has made this journey and being able to coach you honestly so wonderful because it really does feel like a friendship. Like
Yeah.
when I talk to you, yes, obviously I coach you and I guide you and I help you, but we have that friendship aspect that I think makes our bond and connection that much stronger. So just thank you for everything that you've given me as a coach. Like, truly, it's just been such a pleasure to coach you and to continue to get to coach you. So, thank you. Thank you for being on this podcast. And just thank you for truly every week giving me your 100% all. Like, and I tell all my clients, that's all I want. I just want your 100% effort. Whatever the results look like, I will figure that out. I will change the plan as needed, but as long as I have your 100% effort and know that you are dedicated to what we agree to each week, that's all that matters. So again, just thank you for everything, for the knowledge, for the inspiration, and for joining me on this podcast today.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you guys for listening or watching wherever you are viewing this. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We are so appreciative of you and your support. And we will see you guys in the next episode. Bye.